So I want to tell you my own personal horror story. And it won't be the easiest thing to explain, but I'm going to do my best anyways to tell the tale. So, let me start from the beginning. I was 8 years old. I'm in the basement of my family house, which I still live in to this day. And I was playing around with action figures, like some Dragon Ball Z guys, just going bam, you know, as a kid would do. I was alone down there at night, so it was probably like 8, 9 o'clock, close to bedtime. And I'm just screwing around having a good time, when suddenly a chill comes into the air, and I feel this eerie presence behind me. At first I thought it was my dad or brother sneaking up on me or something, but then I kind of just froze there for a minute and stopped playing with the toys and just kind of stayed still. And I just felt this lurking presence behind me, just something right on my shoulder and back, and you know, I can just feel a tingle in your spine. So I slowly turned my head to look over my shoulder. And out of the corner of my eye, I could see a tall, shadowy, dark figure that its head literally could touch the ceiling. So it had to be 7, 8 feet tall. It was just this massive shadow and looked like a hooded, cloaked figure of some sort, kind of wispy around the edges. Then I just looked forward and stayed frozen for a minute, trying not to make any movements. But then the fear settled in, and I was like, what the hell is this thing that's behind me? It's not my dad, it's not anything I know. So I gathered up some courage, and after standing there for a moment, I turned around, faced it, and then ran straight through it. I felt this coldness as I passed through it. But then I just ran up the stairs screaming and crying, and then ran into my room, went underneath the covers and just shaked and cried all night. I was terrified. And so I told my parents I saw a monster in the basement. But they didn't believe me, of course. So after that, nothing else happened for a while. Moving forward now, 8 years later, when I'm 16, it was the middle of summer and I was laying in my bed taking a mid-afternoon nap. I was in the middle of this bizarre dream where me and my friend were on like rollerblades doing all kinds of crazy tricks because there was like low gravity, so we were just jumping and flying around on rollerblades doing all kinds of spins and stuff. It was a very dizzy feeling dream. But then suddenly my eyes were open, but I could not move my body. It was like a sleep paralysis moment. So I was looking at my ceiling and my wall in my room, but I could not move anything else besides my eyes. I looked over to the side of the bed and saw that same shadowy figure looming over me, its head near the ceiling. It had to be 7 feet tall. And it's just this robed, cloaked figure of shadow with no face. It reached out with its hand, with long, bony fingers. It grabbed me by the throat, not choking me, but instead it started to pull. It was pulling something from me, from my throat for some reason. I started to feel this intense vibration, as if I was being torn apart, and I was seeing what looked like my soul. It was this blue essence that it was pulling from me, and I started to feel that vibration as it pulled further and further. The vibration became more intense. It started to feel like a heart attack, but instead it was just this horrible feeling of my soul being ripped from my body. And I was starting to be lifted up farther and further from the bed as it was yanking this essence, my life force, from me. But then suddenly it vanished and I was fully awake. I was hovering in midair off to the side of the bed where it was pulling my soul, and then I fell straight to the floor. And then my parents came in and said, "What the hell was that?" And all I could say was, I rolled off the bed. I was having a weird dream. So I had no idea what to make of it. Like, what was it doing to me? Was it actually like stealing my soul or life energy? And then how the hell was I hovering in midair where I had seen like my soul being pulled out of me? I ended up being in that position and then fell straight to the floor. It was a very bizarre experience, and I've never been able to really understand what actually happened. Fast forward another 8 years later, you're starting to see a pattern. I'm now 24 years old. At this time, I was working as a custodian in the Grosse Pointe schools. I've been working as a custodian now for like 11 years, but I'm 30 now. This is when I was 24. Anyways, I was at this particular daycare / preschool, and I really liked working there. It was a nice place to be at for 2 years. But at this time in my life, I was struggling internally. I was really back and forth between good and evil, right and wrong, and like worrying about sin and stuff like that. And I was kind of trying to hold on to Christianity. At the same time, I was lingering more towards the satanic side. I was between the devil and God and could not settle on one side or the other. Could not right my wrongs, and I kept praying and then having a change of heart and then trying to look into Satanism and occult stuff. It was really back and forth time where I didn't know what to do with myself. One day, while I was working and having this inner turmoil within me, I saw it again. I was cleaning a classroom when it appeared. So I was inside the classroom, and there's a glass pane that separates the hallway from the class so you can see inside and outside. And it appeared right outside that glass in the hallway, looking in at me. Its bony finger touching the glass, pointing at me. It was there for just a brief second, and then it vanished into a wisp. And I just stood there, dumbfounded, for a moment or even minutes. I was just stuck. I never thought I would see that thing again, and then there it was for a moment. But why did it just appear and point at me and then disappear? And then something struck me, and I just broke down into tears. And all of the emotion building up within me just was released. And I settled on the whole inner turmoil and the spirituality I was struggling with. I left behind the Christian belief system and started going more into Hindu and Buddhist beliefs at that point. So in a way, this time when it appeared, it seemed like it helped me through a struggle, or rather it gave me a warning, which led me away from the kind of satanic path I was aiming towards. And so that's the end of what I've experienced so far. However, this pattern of every 8 years that it's appeared, it's kind of alarming. And as I began to delve into meditation and more spirituality and the Indian sort of beliefs, I ended up having some interesting experiences and kind of was able to look back at my whole life and reflect on things. And as I found this pattern, it occurred to me that when I'm 32 years old, it should probably appear again. And something gave me the nagging feeling that at that point, it would be the end of my life. Whether this thing would take my life or have something to do with it, it seemed like that was a sign that was apparent to me. And so I still believe to this day that in a few years, I most likely will be seeing this thing again, whatever it is. Maybe it's like a Grim Reaper, or could be a soul sucker. Now, when I say soul sucker, there's a belief of such an entity that appears just like what I've described in the Mayan beliefs and mythology. And what's interesting about that fact is, while I was doing all these meditations and practices at one point, I did a past life regression, and I saw many past lives, but I was only able to glimpse the end of these lives, the death. And the most vivid one was me as a Mayan. I had, at this point, not remembered anything about Mayan, culture, civilization, or where they were located on the globe. But in this vision, I started outside the Earth, and I zoomed down into the Earth right in Central America, where the Mayans had been years ago. And then it zoomed into a view of a Mayan temple, a fully functional, constructed Mayan temple, as you would see in the ruins nowadays. And then from there, it zoomed back, and I went right into some person, which was who I was, I suppose, some man. And I was in like a hut with like a child that must have been my daughter or sibling or something of the sort. Then I walked out into our village and was talking with this other man there, and then all of a sudden a mudslide comes and wipes us out. And that was the end of that. So, having seen that I was a Mayan in a past life, it was very interesting and kind of connected with this soul sucker idea. But what did it do to me when I was 16 and I had that experience? Ever since then, I've kind of felt depressed, and I've never really had a good head on my shoulders. Like, it felt like it took some part of me. It didn't really take my whole soul or anything, but I felt like some part of my life energy and essence has been missing ever since then. So I'm not sure what to make of it all, but that's the end of my story. Thanks for listening this far, and if you have any comments or thoughts, then please leave them in the comments down below. Like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and I'll see you later in the next video.